All right, so on the weekend, I saw Running Man, directed by Edgar Wright. Let's just talk about it. We're going to do a spoiler free section and then a spoiler filled section. I really like Edgar Wright. I think most people really like Edgar Wright, and I think most people kind of seem to have very similar taste and opinions when it comes to Edgar Wright. I feel like the mass consensus is that Shaun of the Dead and Hot Fuzz are excellent. World's End is like really quite good. And then after that gets a bit up and down. Scott Pilgrim is considered a cult classic. And then once he gets into his like conventional movies, that's where it gets a little slippery for me. It gets a little tricky. You know, you have Baby Driver, which everyone was really excited for. A lot of people saw, and everyone kind of agrees is really amazing for like 70% of it. And then in that back end, it's just doesn't know quite how to wrap up. Things start getting a little clunky, a little convoluted. You're not feeling the things you meant to. It just gets a little off. Then you see Last Night in Soho, amazing cast, amazing production, interesting setup. And then in that last 30 minutes or so, you just watch the movie kind of shit the bed. And I heard a lot about Running Man going into it. I really like Glenn Powell. I really like Edgar Wright. And the reviews were quite middling to quite harsh. And off the back of Begonia, where people were going like, oh, this is disappointing for Yorgos Lanthimos. It's a little easy. I felt like people are sometimes spoiled. You know, I watched Begonia. I thought it was really good. I went into Running Man with an open mind. And I thought people are maybe like just being unfair. Maybe it was a really solid action movie that they're just comparing to movies that came out 10, 15 years ago. And unfortunately, I have to say that while Running Man has moments that are genuinely excellent, whole sections, whole 30-minute chunks that are fantastic, it really just doesn't quite come together the way you wanted it to. And I don't even know how to feel about this movie. I don't know what to say, because saying that it was disappointing, saying that it wasn't good feels way too harsh, but saying to rush out and go see it also feels like a bit too strong of a recommendation. Even calling it mid feels harsh. So let me explain why. The reason I say this is because for the first 10 minutes, I was like seriously worried. The first 10 minutes were genuinely written. You know how people are talking about the idea that Netflix shows are written as second screen viewing? It has really obnoxious, obvious dialogue. So if you're not paying attention, you can still keep up. The first 10 minutes of this movie, it's set in this dystopian world where everyone's kind of like, the difference between the 1% and the impoverished is just insane. Working class people are barely scraping by. Kids are getting sick. Like, people need to do a lot to barely survive. You know, it's a very dystopian future. You get that, you get that instantly. But the way the script initially communicates this to you is really bizarre. It feels like when you've written a really good essay and then you realize you're missing the introduction, you just tack on a clunky intro at the start. It really does feel like that, because after this first 10 minutes of just this really clunky dialogue of Glenn Powell really obviously telling us his career, telling us his wife's career. Oh no, wife, you're going to go to the strip club again so you can strip and do what you don't want to have to do, but you have to do for money for our sick kid. Like, it's just like, you really could have communicated this a little more efficiently, a little more subtly. I know it's an expo dump, but goddamn. After this first 10 minutes, it gets amazing. Like, I was genuinely loving this movie for like 45 minutes. I loved him deciding to enter this competition. The basic setup here is he enters this competition called the Running Man, right? And the Running Man is this idea that you're on the run, you're trying not to get tracked. They will kill you if these trackers find you. And if you can make it 30 days, every single day you survive, your family gets paid. So even if you die, your family gets paid. But on top of that, if you make it to the end, you get $1 billion. It's cool. It's a cool setup. The world's awesome. All the little gags on the TV are really fun. The different game shows they play are really funny and kind of fucked up. And there's a mean sense of humor throughout this movie. You're seeing all this stuff about how the games usually go, and it's getting you really excited. And on top of that, it takes its time to actually start the Running Man, and you're not bored. You're actually enjoying it. Like, all the world building's fun. You get this training montage where I actually saw Edgar Wright's great directorial style come through. There's these moments where he's helping people on training, and then it'll cut back to him helping people on his previous jobs. It's good storytelling, especially compared to that opening 10 minutes. And then as the game goes on, you just kind of watch the movie slowly and progressively fumble the bag. And it never does something egregious where you're like, fuck this movie's trash. It just kind of goes from excellent, this propulsive, palpable energy, to just kind of a bit mid, like just a little like, oh. And you know, it's one of those hard ones where because the movie starts so strong, it's got a great premise. Like anyone who watches this movie and engages with it, your head will be spinning with like, why didn't they do that? Why didn't they do that? Because it's such a great idea. But I saw this review on Letterboxd that described it as a 2-hour pulled punch, and by the end, you do kind of agree. But where I want to like get into those reviews I was mentioning before, like a lot of the reviews I heard going into it were like, oh, you know, this is pretty sourceless for Edgar Wright. Like it's missing that Edgar Wright bite. And for like an hour 20 minutes, I was kind of in disagreement. I was like, this is a really well-made, solid movie, but the story and the script just slowly fall apart, and you start getting more of that clunky writing that was at the start of the movie. You start getting it back, and I'm all for over the top dystopian movies where the themes are spelled out. I really enjoyed The Long Walk recently, but this one's a lot more up and down. Glen Powell is absolutely committed in this movie, and everyone kind of turns in a good performance. Coleman Domingo is fantastic as this presenter, right? Genuinely like chewing up scenery, having great time with the role. And shout out to Josh Brolin, who I thought was really excellent here. Again, saw cynical reviewers being like, oh, he probably just showed up for a day. But I mean, if he did show up for a day, he did a really good job because I thought all his scenes were really good. I thought he was a really menacing oppositional force to our hero. Where this script falls apart, I will need to get into spoilers, so I'm going to talk around it for now. But the big one here is basically from a moment where he meets a young woman until the end. I think the movie just slowly starts to nosedive. The big issue here is you hear that premise of you're going to go out into the city, you're going to go anywhere, you're just going to try and not get caught by these professional hunters that will kill you. And if you can survive, you win tons of money. Great idea. First off, the big issue this movie has, there's only 3 contestants. I'm sure that might have been in the book, but for a visual medium, I just feel like you needed more. I wanted scenes where Glen Powell's driving around. He has to, crash someone into a wall, reverse, someone's with the car with him. They get shot, blood all over his face. He has to jump, like make it manic, make it crazy. I was thinking how good this movie could have been if it was a more accessible version of like Crank.
Value to me. I intend to get it back.
Just this like energetic, like go, go, go movie. The moment he's in the game, it's chaos, You spend a lot of time at first with Glen Powell alone, and he's working on disguises, and he's got a routine, and he's, he has to send in these videos every day, and he's faking the wall behind so they don't figure where he's at. And it's really great. It's that type of movie where you're sitting there like Hunger Games, like The Long Walk, where you're like, what would I do? How would I survive? And for a while, it's really, kind of like getting into your head and like really working on that level where you can actually put yourself in the shoes of the character. And then it just stops. It stops being this movie about a guy on a mission alone trying to escape. For some reason, the script constantly gives Glen Powell people to help him. All the time. It feels so convenient. People constantly find him, constantly help him, constantly give him safety. So the threat, this idea that he's constantly being watched, constantly being surveilled, people are constantly coming after him, he can't stay still. Like for a movie called The Running Man, there was a serious lack of running. But on top of that, there was a lack of surviving, there was a lack of tension, and it just got worse and worse as it went on. And on top of that, by the end of the movie, the plot gets so convoluted because it almost feels like it wants to keep going and going, but not in like a really like, yes, keep going sort of way, just like a, what the fuck are we doing sort of way. And you're sitting there being like, wait, why aren't they killing him now? They could have killed him. Why aren't they? Are they wanting to kill him? What's going on? Like you almost just get overwhelmed, and it starts trying to over twist itself too. Like it starts doing that thing where it's like, in Mission Impossible, there's always that point where you have to like give up. In Mission Impossible 6, there's a point where they're like conversing about you double cross the double cross to double cross, and you just kind of have to have fun with it. That's part of Mission Impossible, that campy, over the top, twisty nature. But in this, it's like, no, this needed to be straightforward. You're getting a little too lost in the sauce here. The world building like falls on top of itself. Things will move, and it's just, I feel so bad because seeing Edgar Wright in interviews, he's so passionate. The whole cast is really passionate. They've made a movie that sounds absolutely wonderful. It looks incredible. There's so many good things going on in this movie, and it's just a bad script. Great direction, bad script. This also happens a lot. I was listening to Sardonicast recently. It's a podcast I really like, and one of the questions was, like people often hear about movies with good direction, bad script? What are movies with bad direction? Sorry, yeah, movies with bad direction but a good script. And I actually can't think of too many movies with bad direction and a good script, but this felt like a massive example of a movie with great direction, a terrible script. But dare I say, look, I don't know if the director, look, in big studio movies, maybe the studio has final cut or can speak on these things, but I do feel like normally the director looks at the cuts that are submitted, right? Looks at what the editor's doing and goes, nope, try it again. We need to work this out. And I do feel like Edgar Wright probably, as a director, it's his job to watch this movie and go, maybe this doesn't work. And in order to talk about more, I do need to get into spoilers. But ultimately, if you are looking for a fun night out, this movie will give that to you for 90 minutes. The issue is the movie goes for 2 hours 15, and by the end of it, it's just all right, you know? I was someone who was really into the movie. I thought it had good style, good pacing, but ultimately, aside from the script, also, it's got an MA rating here in Australia, which is the equivalent to America's R rating, meaning it can get pretty violent. It should be able to get pretty nasty, but like low key, I wanted more of like blood on someone's face. Oh my God, I was driving in this thing. Now the car's flipped, and oh my God, an explosion there and a leg flew over here. Like it almost needed a bit more of a grittier version of maybe the violence from Kick-Ass or a Matthew Vaughn film. Kind of like that, but a little more dialed up. Not as brutal as, say, The Long Walk, but that campy, fun, oh my God, violence. You know, there's this great setup where Glenn Powell is in like an elevator and it looks like he's going to drag people into the elevator and like, you know, maybe throw one into the elevator shaft and then they get cut in half. Like Final Destination violence almost. You get what I mean? Like maybe that direction. But I don't know. It was weirdly tame. And on top of that, there weren't many good action scenes. Like it was just kind of, it was fun scenes. But yeah, like I was like, where are the good fight scenes? Like Scott Pilgrim has some really incredibly well-directed action. Even Hot Fuzz, even though it's a comedy. And in this one, I was just sort of like, it would build up to a scene. I'm like, here we go. But minus one shootout in a plane, the rest of it was just kind of like, okay. All right. Anyways, if you're enjoying this video, before we get into spoilers, please consider getting a membership to this channel. For the cost of a cup of coffee a month, you get access to a podcast where I talk about every single movie, new and old, I've watched, everything I've watched in cinemas that I haven't talked about on the channel, anything I've watched on that shelf or on streaming that I haven't talked about on the channel, new, old shows, movies, books, anything. You get a podcast a week or fortnight. Please consider it. It really helps out the channel. Now, let's get into spoilers. So, couple things, all right? Couple things. First off, there's a point where the producer, played by Josh Brolin, says, oh my God, the hunters actually killed your family. Sad face. He goes, so, you know, like, but you can work for me. You can become this new hunter. I'm going to let you win the show and you can become the new hunter. You'll get your own reality show. And I will say, to the movie's credit, there was a point where Glenn Powell was on the plane and he was trying to negotiate for getting let out of the show or whatever, right? And I was like, you know what? They've built a really, like a genuinely awfully dystopian world. Like I was sitting there with a pit in my stomach being like, there's no situation where he gets out of this well. He's either going to lose his identity or as if they're actually going to let him live after he's messed up so much. Maybe his family gets the money, but like, even if he wins this, I don't think he's surviving. It just didn't feel good. There was a point where they were AI corrupting his videos and all of this stuff was going on. I'm like, yeah, this isn't good. All right. On top of that, I think the movie cooked when we get this whole application process of him. And initially Josh Brolin seems charming. And then you see how they manipulate the competitors. You know, they'll show these videos of the competitors that don't exist. It's AI enhanced, or there'll be these sections where they're like, he's actually a dirty, you know, dole bludger. He doesn't really work at all, blah, blah, blah. And like they build this divide between the rich and the poor further. I thought that was all excellent world building. But where it kind of falls apart is, yeah, Josh Brolin at a certain point is like, nah, I killed you. Oh, sorry, not I killed your family. The hunters killed your family. Sorry, mate. And I actually think they needed to stick to that. I actually think they needed that to be real. And on top of that, it did, if I remember correctly, Josh Brolin had a hand in that. I think they needed to stick with that. The reason I say that is at the end of the movie, Glenn Powell goes to shoot Josh Brolin, right? As this big like oorah moment. And because you find out that Josh Brolin didn't really kill his family, I just wasn't that moved by it. It wasn't this massive fuck yeah moment. Like I was just kind of like, okay, like obviously the world is awful, but I was sort of just like, yeah, okay, like he fucked you around a bit. everyone fucked you around a bit. You signed up for a fucked up game. Like, people died because of you as well. Like, I was just kind of like, yes, obviously he's the bad guy, but I was kind of missing. I actually think the family need to stay dead, and I really would have been like, fucking get it. But that was a pulled punch. That does kind of take away from the gut punch of how horrific this world is. I don't think you can have it both ways. You know, if you want this dystopian world to be really, really awful, let it be really, really awful. Because as it stands, it seems kind of funny and weird and strange. Like, it just, for a while, it felt really like a suffocating existence, and then by the end, it didn't. Also, like, low key, I don't get this whole like thing of like, we're gonna kill Josh Brolin, he's the worst, and then like Coleman Domingo gets a free pass from this movie. Like, the framing of Coleman Domingo being like, actually, Josh Brolin, you're a piece of shit, you can't touch me, this is fucked, is so like unearned. I'm like, he was also part of this machine. Like, he shouldn't get a free pass just because like he turned on Josh Brolin last minute. And of course, like, I'm happy for movies not to end perfectly clean and have some like lingering bad stuff going on, but it wasn't framed that way. It was framed as like, oh, good on Coleman Domingo for having a change of heart, nice. On top of that, in the book, the original ending is that he flies a plane and dies, because there's obviously no way out of this. He flies a plane into the building and stops the shuttle and sends a message. And I don't know, I think that would have been good. I think having this idea that he did actually escape from an escape pod, they pull like a Dark Knight Rises. Oh yeah, he escaped from an escape pod and he'll get to be with his family again. And you just kind of watch it, and it's not bad. Like, it's never bad, but it's just like, okay, all right, fine. Like, nothing's really felt, and I think it's a shame. On top of that, he meets the girl. She was also in Cat Person, but he meets up with this girl in a rich car. And like, look, there's a really good scene where he's like, you clearly have something you want to say. Like, you clearly don't like me, say it. And she goes on this tangent about how he's a poor idiot who is awful and has, you know, like a whore of a wife, and she's a stripper, and he doesn't care about his baby, and he's causing violence. And like, you see that the brainwashing from this TV company, you see how fucked up society is. You see how she views people that are poorer than her. Really effective. If you just left it there, that's like a good scene. But for some reason, the scene keeps going, and then Glenn Powell starts like explaining the themes to us like we're babies, and he's like, that scarf of yours, that scarf could pay for medication for my daughter for 2 years, yada 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 yada. And it's just like, I don't know, man, it just isn't really cooking. And also, it's going to sound weird because I'm not defending billionaires here, but I think we need to stop getting movies that have these really surface level critiques of billionaires or surface level critiques of rich people, when even the people that are making them are engaging in, you know what I mean? Like, I just spent, you know, $80 on me and my family to go see this movie, and that could have been like a bunch of kids' food for like months. You know what I mean? Like, we're all kind of a little hypocritical. So I think you need to make this commentary a little more biting and a little more interesting and a little more pointed, because as it stands, I'm just watching Edgar Wright, a millionaire director, you know, and Glenn Powell, all of whom probably wear luxury clothes, roasting this girl for wearing a scarf. And I'm just like, you know what I mean? It's like babies first sort of cultural commentary, you know? Like, if you're going to go for it, really go for it. Really say something, or really like pitch it at a certain class or a certain type of person. But it's just so like, I don't know, man, like just really simplistic and dumbed down. And she hangs around for a while, and just, it's not her, she's a good actress, but her character just makes the movie a lot worse. And then it gets into this whole convoluted, like, we're going to go on a plane, I've got a fake bomb, and then Josh Brolin let me on the plane because he knew the bomb wasn't real, but also like people did think the bomb was real. And you're just like, what's going on? What, are they trying to kill him? Are they not trying to kill him? Like, again, it just over twists, and because the movie's not working at that point, you're just kind of like, okay, like, let's wrap it up. You're clearly not going to kill him. Yeah, no, it really did fall apart in that last act. And I hate to say it because I really do like Edgar Wright, but then the girl sticks around, right? And there's this moment where he's like, as if you're coming with me, like, there's no bomb here, you can go. There's a point, I forget when, where he's like, you can go. And she goes, no, I need to stay and I need to help you because I need to prove to everyone and myself that I'm a good person. I'm like, who wrote this shit? What is going on? Who says that? Who would say that? Now, there is one moment where they almost make fun of this. There's a bit where she has a parachute and the parachute doesn't open. And she's like, maybe the parachute didn't open because I'm meant to stay here with you and help you. And then the parachute quickly sucks her out. Good bit. But by then, the movie had kind of lost my patience, my understanding, my empathy. This is a real tough one, guys, because half of this movie is low-key, like a 4 out of 5. And then the last 45 minutes is like a 5 out of 10. It's a toughie. It's a movie I would buy, but only to watch like a movie night if someone was interested or like down the line. It's going to be one of those ones that's right in the middle, and every year I'm going to remember the good parts of it and be like, maybe I should rewatch that. That was actually all right. And then I rewatch and go, this is really good. What was I thinking? What was the world thinking? And then when it gets into the last half, I'll go, I remember now. Yikes. So anyways, yeah, that's my review of Running Man. See it if you're interested, but like, yikes. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, everyone. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and please consider getting a membership to this channel if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much, and have a lovely day.